Hello and welcome to another long-term lens review, guest starring today the Fujinon XF 10-24 f4 R OIS wide-angle zoom lens. Dun dun dun! Now that I'm in focus, I can tell you that this is another video sponsored by me and the stuff I buy, including this lens. So I've had this lens for over 6 years. I got it in March of 2015. I'm recording this in April of 2021. So let's walk through a little bit how I do these reviews, these long-term reviews. I share my opinions, my real-world experiences using this lens. We'll talk a little bit about specs, a little bit about who I think this lens is a good fit for. Share some photos, some edited photos of mine that show you how I've used this lens, and then hopefully at the end you will join me in a conclusion where you can see whether you think this lens is a good fit for your style of photography. Yeah, so I'll share some sample images. I think I said that. To be clear, this long-term review is my experience with the version 1 of this lens. In late 2020, Fuji came out with a new version of this lens, which has some different features, I guess, but optically it should perform the same. I'll cover some of those differences when I talk about specifications in a moment. So let's talk about specs. This lens is, the full name is the XF 10-24 f4 R OIS. So it has an aperture ring, clicky clicky. Now this aperture ring doesn't have any numbers on it. It also is an infinite spin ring, which I'm not a fan of. Also, it's it is loose. It's easy to bump. Super easy to bump. I've done that many times where I thought I was at f4 and then all of a sudden I look down, I'm at f5.6. The new version of the lens has a tighter, I understand, zoom ring. It's a little more definite click, it takes more movement. Plus it has numbers on it and it doesn't spin from one end to the other. So this is an OIS lens, so it's optical image stabilization. That means it's will do some So that means the lens itself will provide some image stabilization to help offset any camera movement. It's good for about, I think, 2.5 stops. The new version of the lens, I think, is good for 3.5 stops on non-stabilized bodies, but up on the XT4, I understand it's good for 6 or 6.5 stops. Quite a bit of image stabilization when you combine it with a camera that has image stabilization in the body. Another thing that difference between this first version and the current version is weather resistance. This first version that I have does not have it. The current version does. This currently, you can still buy these. They retail for $7.99. The new version is $9.99, which was a retail that I paid for this lens back in the day, although I think I got it on sale. What else would you like to know? This does have a on-off switch for the image stabilization, which I mostly leave on. So, great build. It's got Fuji smooth zoom operation and focus by wire. I don't use manual focus on Fuji lenses. I just don't like their focus by wire system. I understand why they do it, but I personally don't prefer it, so I'll just stick with autofocus. The zoom system on this is an internal zoom, so this lens will not grow on you like the other lenses I have reviewed. This is the size you get. It's nice and compact, solid, 14.5 ounces, 410 grams. Minimum focusing distance, that's one of the things I like about this, is only 9.5 inches, so you can get pretty close to subjects. And especially when you're wide angled, you can get some really cool perspectives when you're at the 10 millimeter end of things. So speaking of 10 millimeters, that's 15 millimeters full frame equivalent, and the 24 would be equivalent to a 36 millimeter full frame. All right, so that's the specs. That's the thoughts, comparisons to the version 2 of this lens. So who's this lens for? I think it's for lots of folks. It's great image quality, plus it gives you a ton of flexibility on the wide end. So if you want that different perspective, or if you need to take a picture of a small space, so architectural real estate photographers, interiors especially, exteriors, landscape photographers, it's great image quality. And again, it's just nice and a tidy package. So it's easy to take with you. So let's get into the sample photos, take a look at some of those, and we'll talk about some of the other features and characteristics of this lens. So here we go. So what I'm going to show you is edited photos, and I will also include the camera and the settings, the exposure settings, as well as the date for each photo. I'm not going to pixel peep on these. We're just going to take a look and discuss a little bit my experience with the lens, why I've and hopefully these photos are representational of what you can expect if you had this lens or got this lens. So first photo here, one of the first photos I think I took with this lens is just a little snail on garden hose in just outside our condo. Up close, I love the look of this. It feels like you've entered a different world. You can kind of get a sense of the bokeh here, the out of focus transition and how that looks. Nice, great color, great sharpness. With some exceptions, I'll get to that. But my opinion is this is just a fun lens to use. It gives you another perspective to look at things, and it's that wide perspective. Even though this is at 24 millimeters, so it's not the wide end of things. Here's another photo at 24, just showing the image quality at a car show of this Italia 2000. Nice red car with some tree reflections in the shiny red paint. And then a long exposure at the fair to show just, I mean, it handles dynamic range pretty well, really well. Anytime you're going to see vignetting in the photos, that's because I've added it. I can't talk today. And because this lens doesn't really do any vignetting that I've experienced or noticed. It's not noticeable to me. For folks who like sun stars, lens stars, at f16, f22, I've got two photos I'll show you. It does a nice job. It gives you a nice sun star. Also, you get a sense here of how it handles kind of chromatic aberration and flaring. I think most of what you're seeing on those lens spots, lens flares, might be stuff on the front of the lens. I don't keep my lenses sometimes the cleanest, so I imagine that's mostly that. But good flare control, good chromatic aberration control, pretty much non-existent. Here's another Sunstar f22, 24 millimeters. Again, just does a nice job. Predictable, nice. I like the look. Bokeh, I talk about that in my reviews. It's not super wild and crazy. It's pretty well controlled. It's pretty simple. It's there, but it's not going to be a main feature, I think, of elements in your photo. It does transition nicely to out of focus areas, as this relative close-up shows you. It's got a nice fall off. It's got a nice treatment. It's predictable. It's nice. It's good quality. But not a lot of character, I guess. So you're not gonna blow people away with blurry backgrounds. For architecture, I've used this quite a bit for just my walking around, taking pictures of buildings on our gray sky days that I overexpose then and make white sky. On this building this is in downtown Bellevue. Here's another interior photo. This is the Dexter Horton building in Seattle. Interior, again, intentionally overexposed to hide details outside, show the details of that amazing roof, ceiling, the arch. Yeah. So again, I hope I get a sense of the image quality of this lens. It's pretty spectacular. Suffolk Cathedral in London does a nice job. Like all wide-angle lenses, one of the reasons they get used is for that wide look. And as you start tilting, you are going to notice, especially at the edges at 10 millimeters, you're going to start noticing a little bowing, some distortion of shapes. That's common for this type of lens. You can see it here on my desk, which is a rectangle, but it looks like a big, what would that shape be? Quadrilateral? It's not a parallelogram, it's a quadrilateral. Anyway, so this is sitting at my desk, 11 millimeters. It's about a total of 4 feet of depth here. So again, you get a nice wide look at things with this lens. It's great for interiors. Here's the interior of a converted bus into an art studio. So again, it's for tight spaces. It's great. Got lots of ability to capture shadow and highlight detail at the same time. Here's an HDR version of the exterior of that bus. So it just does a really, really nice job. Holds lots of detail, good color, good just detail. It's a nice lens. It's a really nice lens. One of my favorite ways to use ultra wide lenses kind of like this, that 10 millimeters, is to play with perspective. So these are relatively small bushes, but I'm down below them looking up, so that makes them look taller on this foggy sunrise. It's fun to play with perspective. That's one of the reasons I like wide lenses and telephoto lenses, is they give us a different way to render reality into something interpretive and more maybe artistic than just documentary. So that's my preferred style of photography. We'll walk a little bit into landscape on our way to some wedding photos. So again, bright sunny day outdoors. You can see how sunny it was, but again, good detail in shadows, highlights, brights and darks. This lens just does a really, really nice job. And again, one of the fun things to do with wide-angle lenses is use them to make things look a little larger. This was not a huge wedding venue for the first dance with the couple, but down low. And so you make them look a little bigger. It's fun to play with proportions and a little bit of stretching reality. You can see a little bit on the outside edges here. The boy on the left side of the frame, he's a little he's a little stretched. That's going to happen, especially if you start tilting this. If you add an angle to the photo around the edges, you're going to get more of that. You're going to see that in this photo as well. You also notice, especially wide open, around the edges, it's a little softer, not quite super duper sharp. Again, for my style of photography, when I'm going for these somewhat exaggerated looks, I certainly don't mind it. By the way, the trick to this photo, the groomsman on the far left here, he drove his Suburban back and forth to break a dust cloud in this dirt parking lot with this sunset, so we got the rays of light. Don't be afraid to ask the groomsmen to drive their truck around to give you some atmosphere. Again, playing with perspective in the ceramics lab at Highline College, getting pretty close to the student and exaggerating shapes and sizes and relationships. So this lens does a great job with that kind of thing. Again, it's still nice and sharp. I primarily shoot this at wide open, and it just does a really, really nice job. Last but not least of the photos, again, wide-angle lenses, those ultra-wide lenses, are so fun to play with perspectives and transform ordinary objects into something a little different. This is just a traffic light pole in Redmond, and just looking straight up with some cloudy skies. So the camera's resting right on it, 10 millimeters, and it kind of gets transformed. So my opinion of this lens, a summary, it's great. It's a great lens for my use, with the way I use it with architectures, interior and exterior, for landscapes. I'm so glad to be able to have the ability to get that wide view, and it does it really, really well. It's great. My experience of focusing for both photo and video is really, really good. The image stabilization for video is not, it doesn't provide very much in my experience, but it gives a little bit. So probably want to use a gimbal if you're using this lens for video, or have it locked down on a tripod. The Sunstar appearance is very nice. The flare and chromatic aberration control is very good. A little soft around the edges at f4, especially at the wider focal lengths, but you know, that's kind of a given a lot of times with these lenses at 10 millimeters or so. My preference, in summary, I wish this lens had weather resistance. Hey, I could go buy that now. I wish this lens had numbers on the aperture ring and a little firmer dial. Hey, I could go buy that now. So I think Fuji's answered two of the user interface, if you will, issues with this lens, and so now you can get that with the same optical quality as the one I've just shown you. So in summary, I will give this lens a 4.5 out of 5 donuts. It's really good. I would buy it again in a heartbeat. I'm glad to have it in my camera bag all the time. Just a couple little things that, you know, keep it from the perfect 5 out of 5 donuts, but really well done, Fuji. I'm glad to have this lens. As always with these long-term reviews, if you have experience with this lens and want to share them in the comments, please leave those below. If you have some questions you want to ask about this lens, specific use cases or thoughts, leave those in the comments below. I'd be glad to have a conversation with you. And also, I would love if you subscribe to this channel. It helps me out tons. Like this video, gently press the like button. I'm not a very smashy kind of guy. So yeah, that's the end of this review. Also, that's the end for now of the long-term reviews of Fuji zoom lenses. That's my last one. I do have the 16 to 80, but that lens had a gravitational encounter with a hard surface. That means I dropped it, and I need to get that repaired. So I'm going to take a break from these lens reviews videos, get back to some composition and creativity kind of videos, and then we'll come back and review my prime lenses long-term in a little bit. So until I see you in the next video, make sure you watch the end of the video with some photo samples and some more samples full screen. And then I will see you the next time you click play on one of my YouTube videos. So until we meet again, stay well, be safe out there, and hopefully we'll be all vaccinated soon. Take care. Bye for now.